What's going on, Jake? We got Live at 5 going today. Glad to have you back on. We're doing it with a little newer format. We're trying a Zoom call. We're doing this one pre-recorded, but the upcoming ones will all be live at 5 on YouTube. The YouTube will be in the Instagram bio, as well as I'll tweet out all the links to it once we get it properly set up. Coming tomorrow, so get ready to turn on post notifications for YouTube so that way you don't miss it, and they'll also be uploaded to YouTube. So go over there and subscribe so that way you can stay up to date on some of our sports topics. But today we're kind of just doing a little bit of a quick roundtable, running through some different sports like current news and topic stuff we've kind of found interesting, and we'll just go ahead and get started up.
Hell yeah, Live at 5 with DK. I'm glad to be on around too, man. I'm excited.
This is going to be good. All right, so we got your camera.
Format is awesome, man. The new format is it.
I'm liking the new format. And the first thing we're definitely going to be talking about.
Oh, okay. We got some Aldon Smith.
Controversial, but a player with a very checkered background coming back into the league. Now, here's the deal. The Cowboys gave him a $2 million deal with $2 million in sack incentives, totaling $4 million if he hits all of his sack incentive totals. Now, being from the Bay and a Niners fan, the two teams that he played for, Oakland and the 49ers most, notably, he was incredible. I mean, we'll look at the stats right here, but as you can see, we got 14 sacks in his age 22 season.
Unbelievable. First thing I want to say is I never, ever thought that I would be seeing Aldon Smith pop up on my phone as a notification ever again after what happened. And two, I kind of like the contract they got him on, considering when you look at these stats, like maybe he got some juice left in the tank. I mean, I don't know, man.
I agree. And that was
at 19.5 sacks here in season 2. Like, come on.
At 23 years old, I mean, this was something I remember watching this happen, and there was like a media narrative which was true, like when we were watching Russ go for triple doubles, where it was 22 sacks, which was
Can he beat the record? Yeah, can he break the record?
And I mean, 19 and a half, it wasn't a crazy thought, that he could go ball out and, we'd try to run, a player to, try to get him a few sacks isolated, get him single coverage and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways, crazy stats. Now, courtesy, and then these stats and other stats that we're going to be looking at are courtesy of the Reference Network, either Pro Football or Pro Basketball Reference. So thank the guys over there for the stats. And over here, I just wanted to go quickly through some of the stuff that people courtesy of ESPN.
Take this journal, this ride through the Aldon Smith journey again.
Man, this is people that don't know, you might be looking at me and Jake and saying 19 and a half sacks. What the hell? How is he not in the league? This doesn't make any sense. So drafted 7th out of Missouri and has, obviously, as we just looked at the stats, a great 2 seasons. Now, if we start looking down, they lose, a second season, arrested on DUI in Florida. Okay, well, that's definitely not good. We go another DUI, crashing his truck into a tree in a residential neighborhood in San Jose.
When was the first one? What date did that first one say? 2011? Oh, no, 2012. Okay, 2012. So yeah, this is like a year apart. Oh, no, yeah, a year apart.
And I remember this because I am from the Bay Area, and I remember having, like, personal friends that actually were in San Jose that saw the damage of what Aldon Smith did. I still have the pictures on my phone. So this is like known Bay Area clown shit. And
it's Aldon Smith being an idiot is what it is.
Yeah, so we have 2 DUIs. We move forward to 2013. Finds himself in on 3 felony counts of assault weapon charges here. We move forward another year. Bomb threats at LAX. Let's keep it going, okay? He gets sentenced for the previous DUI, gets a suspension for the previous DUI. So that we knew that was coming. A year later, hit and run DUI and vandalism charges, first day at training camp, bro. We're like, Aldon Smith, is he turned around? Bro, it didn't even take to get to the season. Okay, so we just keep moving forward.
That's like a 3-year span right there. He just took everything out and just, like, that was 2 DUIs, like gun charges, hit and run, like that was all within 3 years.
Vandalism, yeah. So then a terrible coaching hire, Tom Sula, but whatever. He's there at the time. Unrelated. So Tom Sula cuts him. And, that whole deal's done because he's had such a long record. And in typical Raider bad boy fashion, they say, well, we'll take him. So they sign him, has a 3.5 sack game season in 6 games, though, which, again, shows production.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad.
Gets another suspension doled out by the NFL, stays with the Raiders, and then in a car accident in which a female, not him, was driving, but he was in the car, and he was so drunk in the car that there were TMZ sports reports saying that he was drinking like bottles of tequila, and he got arrested for public intoxication. And the story gets out that like he was part of this, and so they don't release his name, but they say somebody is going to be released from San Francisco police like custody for public intoxication. Yeah. And who other than Aldon Smith comes to SFPD with cameras waiting for his ass, bro? So so that happens there. And then moving forward with that, Del Rio cuts him. So now he's gone with the Raiders. Goes through some other things, and then domestic violence most recently. And this is another serious one. We already talked about gun charges, bomb threats, and DUI on a number of occasions. And now Smith was having reportedly drank 2 bottles of tequila before fleeing the scene. Smith's fiance later says Smith checked himself into rehab while SFPD stayed interested in him. And I believe he turned himself in later because I remember, turned himself in. And, whoa, what do you know? He's back with the Cowboys.
2 years. 2 years since the last update, and here we are.
And so this is something that I just –
can you do me a favor real quick and go back to that?
Yeah, it's a crazy ride. So what – like, is this too much? Like, what's the risk reward here? Obviously, that you have a player with such a checkered background. Yeah. But is it just is signing Aldon Smith?
I mean, wait. Yeah, can you scroll back up for a second? There was a stat that I saw in here that just like blew my absolute mind. Keep going up a little bit. I think it was like 2014.
Okay.
They said he retired with like 44 sacks in 43 games or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Right there. Down.
Yep. Here we go.
Smith has 42 sacks in 43 career games is dude, like that's unbelievable. Right. If you keep that up, you're one of the all-time greats. So like, the dude has talent,
That's one of the things that was disappointing, and you can attest to this. But there were names in this draft such as J.J. Watt and Von Miller.
Aaron Donald, I'm pretty sure, was in that draft.
And he was drafted 7th in a loaded defensive draft class, which shows you immediately the ability. And then the second part of it, like you just said, if you're averaging a sack a game, if you get 16 sacks a season, I mean, we're talking about DPOY. You don't get ranked the 7th player right here. I mean, if we just go up, you don't get ranked the 7th player out of 100 by not being a top 10 NFL player. Like, you are fantastic. So the fact that there was such a big collapse is shocking. I mean, it's not shocking if you have personal demons, but it's shocking to watch because it's so sad to see such an incredible talent just dwindle out of the league. I mean,
one of the best young talents.
Sacks.
Yeah, I mean, like you were saying, when he came up with that draft class, they were talking about like him, J.J. Watt, and Von Miller, who, like Aaron Donald, who's the best. So like he was in that discussion with them, who are now still just dominating the league.
And in the first 3 years of his league, he was ranked above Von Miller, and I think there's a little bit of literature in here that attests to it, but
I would almost be confident in saying that no player has ever put up 19.5 sacks in their second year. Like maybe, but there cannot be more than 2 or 3 that have done that. Because that is unbelievable. Like, that doesn't happen. People don't put up 19. Like, it's a Hall of Fame season as a second-year player. Like, come on. So I mean, if this ends up like, especially because the contract they gave was like riddled with incentives. So they're not paying those incentives unless he balls out. And if he balls out, then yeah, of course you want to pay him those incentives. So I actually don't hate the signing or the contract by the Cowboys. It's really funny because it's the type of Cowboys move you see all the time. I don't know if you remember, what was that dude's name? Randy Gregory, the dude that beat people and then went to go play WWE or whatever it was. And I remember the Cowboys gave him a second chance, and I was like, come on, man.
Yeah.
It's all the Cowboys.
No, yeah, my final thought on the contract is I agree with you. I mean, because it's incentive-based and the $2 million isn't fully guaranteed.
Exactly.
This is such a low-risk contract. Now, the way
low risk, high reward.
The way it blows up in your face is if he acts a fool under contract, and then everybody goes, this dude is like the biggest known fool. We just talked about him being a fool for like 5 minutes. They're like, so if this dude's known fooling and he stays being a fool, this was stupid. You made yourselves look stupid. You made the
and every once in a while, you'll see a player like this just tank locker rooms. I mean, you see what Antonio Brown has been able to do.
But
Like,
low risk, low reward, and you can cut him because it's incentive-based contract and probably get out of it for between $500,000 and $500,000 and $1.2 million, somewhere in that range.
Which is nothing.
Jerry Jones is absolutely worth it.
Jerry Jones not worried about that. No, yeah, and like I said, you're only dishing out those incentives if he reaches those goals. And if he reaches those goals, then you're happy to just have the incentives. That means he balled out this year.
Yeah.
He this year. All right, that's what we're trying to get from you. So,
all right, let's move to the next thing. And now this one's a little bit more fun. But
yeah, I love this one.
The reason we have Giannis up on the screen is Jake and I did a little deep diving and contract searching and cap space maneuvering, if you will. And one of the things that we came up with was, why did such a great front office in the Warriors make weird moves for a non-locker room, non-court fit in D'Angelo Russell, as well as then trading that for Andrew Wiggins, who is known bad contract or high paid. Now the fit on the floor is better. So from a PR, from a fan engagement, from a basketball standpoint, it makes sense. Right. Now, it doesn't make enough sense though, Jake. What say you?
For me, it just doesn't make sense because they made moves like they were trying to like restart their franchise, reboot almost with getting the pick and taking on these terrible Andrew Wiggins contracts for that first-round pick, which makes it seem like they're almost like trying to stack picks to draft new players to like get the franchise going completely. But they have Steph and Clay coming back next year, who are two superstars who we know are going to want to compete for a title. So if they're stacking up a bunch of assets like they're going to try to rebuild, but they're also trying to contend, you know, it looks like they're going to have a trade coming in where, you know, they're going to trade away those assets that are going to be rebuilding, you know, those pieces to somebody who is actually in a rebuild, so they can bring in somebody and help them contend with Steph and Clay and Draymond, who they already have coming back next year. And who would make sense more, you know?
I think it's going to be this guy at the top of the screen with his name now highlighted in yellow. And I think now this might be crazy, but if you look at the contract matching, being able to trade Andrew Wiggins for Giannis, it works. If you look at the draft capital, it works. If you look at a want or need for the Bucks to want to clear out a Warriors young bench, it's there. Eric Pascal, 15 points a game as a rookie. There's some young pieces that if you want to, and I quote, kitchen sink it, you know, you can kitchen sink it, get everybody out and bring Giannis in. Now, people want to call this crazy off the bat. Let me just rewind everyone's minds not too far to when Kevin Durant joined the Warriors. Now, this isn't a crazy thought because everybody thought, oh, that's impossible. He just lost 3-1 to this.
Exactly.
The contract's not going to work. This isn't going to work. That's not going to work. Well, guess what? They cleared the space. They cleared the bench. Andre's contract was the only thing. They had to clear out everybody but Andre, and they made it work. Now, with this Andrew Wiggins contract and the draft capital, the salary matching works. The Warriors could be positioned to get Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now that is, again, just I mean, with Steph and Clay, dog, like that. Oh, Jesus.
No, I mean, and what's interesting is like the NBA made the Supermax rule so where you can sign more money to the team that drafted you than any other team. So that's really the only thing that the Bucks have going for them is that they're allowed to give him more money than the Warriors are actually allowed to give him, like, no matter what they want because of that.
Let me try this on for size, though. The Bay Area has way greater out-of-contract opportunities. And that was one of the reasons that Kevin Durant came and started what is now known as 35 Ventures, which is an investing group and a tech investing group in the Bay Area that has, you know, through multiple avenues made hundreds of thousands of dollars and has been very, very successful for him. And that's just like a small thing. But
I mean, the connections within the Bay Area.
Milwaukee being a small market team, they can offer more money on the contract, but the Nike deal is smaller in Milwaukee than it is in San Francisco. The watch brand deal, the Mercedes deal, the television ad deals.
Yeah.
You don't see TV ads with Giannis unless they're for a shoe on Nike. Why is that? Well, because he has to go do dealership and shit out in Milwaukee. No one's watching that. So what he should, or not should, but what if he was looking to venture out and position himself to make more money. And being the superstar that he is, he's in a different echelon where his name is a household name, and he has the ability to really go out and get money off the basketball court. And Milwaukee's not a place to do that.
I know, and that's also what's interesting is like it seems like these players or some of these players, it's obviously impossible to dive into each individual player, but we see it with Kawhi, we saw it with KD. A lot of these players are realizing that once they reach like just stupid money, like Giannis is never gonna have a problem with money in the rest of his life, honestly. Like he'd have to really try. He would have to really try to lose all that money. So at that point, if you have all the money in the world, like you want to win. And so if Giannis goes to the Bucks and says, I want to leave, I want to win, who can offer more than what the Warriors can offer right now? There's not too many teams that have a top 5 pick this year, along with a pick next year that's the Timberwolves pick that's going to be bad, and they can give, they have a lot of pieces here that a lot of other teams can't offer. And so while they might not want to trade Giannis, if Giannis is asking to be traded, and you got the Warriors sitting here with 2 lottery picks they could trade you, like how are you not going to accept that? I mean, all of a sudden you're looking at the offer.
Yeah, I agree completely. All right, let's go to another thing that stood out to me, and that was 4-1 quarterback Drew Lock, the Missouri grad. So the reason I wanted to just briefly talk about Drew Lock, I don't want to dwell on this one for too long, but Drew Lock had, if we look right here, win against Oakland in a close game, 177 yards, threw a tutter, 90 rating. All PBR was garbage. Now, here's the thing about a quarterback, though. I kind of want to see wins and losses, and especially your swagger. And I know you kind of saw a lot of this because you watched more of the Denver games as opposed to the tape than I did. So you have a testament to him being a leader. But win at Oakland, win at Detroit. Again, good game. Good enough. Rookie coming into Flacco. Fantastic game at Houston.
Unbelievable game. 309 yards.
And then another decent game.
He played well against
the and then with the rushing stats, nothing crazy, but I just wanted to show people that, he did move his feet.
He can run.
6'4", 3.
You've just seen a quarterback with that many rushing attempts. Like, he's confident. That's 18 rushes.
That's what I'm saying. And, he went out and got a 10er, a 12 or 11, whatever. But, yeah. So
he can run what he needs to.
Show that he's confident to do it. Now, the reason I wanted to bring this up, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it right now, is I think that Drew Lock has a good arm and can really sling the football. And I don't know. I think he could be the future of the quarterback.
He showed crazy development for a rookie last year. They had Joe Flacco on their team starting at the beginning, who was Super Bowl, and he had the Super Bowl MVP and all that stuff. He's been trashed since then, but it's a veteran, and so they were terrible with Joe. Like, they were absolutely trash with Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco started talking trash on the whole team. Then he got put on IR because everyone's like, "Yeah, fuck you, Joe Flacco." And then Drew Lock came in and started balling. And we saw some of this. Like, dude, how far? That's like a 70-yard throw right there.
Yeah, these are some highlights because I wanted to throw it back to when he had his confidence. And I know this is a highlight tape and you're going to see the good parts. And the bad parts, I'll just highlight.
So good, though, man. The good parts are so good.
That's what I'm saying. And he said before Burrow, people forget because of what Burrow just did. He had the SEC single-season touchdown record for one season.
I didn't even know that. So that's Burrow right there.
Right. And so look at the ball just come out. Like, he has a great ball. He has a great ball.
What's impressive is when a lot of quarterbacks, when you see them like throw the deep ball, there's the backpack celebration. Oh, let's go.
So hard, buddy.
There's a lot of quarterbacks where you see them throw that deep ball and they'll like float it almost, like it's the trajectory of a float and it takes so long to reach the receiver. When he's throwing 50 yards downfield, it's like a rope. It's like a laser going right into his hands. Like there's no time for the defender to run into it because the ball is just going directly right to where he's aiming.
No, I agree completely, and I think that like he not only does he have the arm talent, but like you just said, he has the confidence out there, and
that backpack celebration is so much swag.
He has so many physical tools with his arm that I really do just think he's an NFL level starting quarterback. We saw the 4-1. Now the stats weren't as like comparable to the success.
He's a rookie quarterback.
And
if you're winning games as a rookie quarterback on a bad team, like that's a good sign.
Well, you know what rookie quarterback did have the stats? Kyler Murray.
Yeah, he had a great season. He had 20 touchdowns and 12 interceptions.
As a rookie. Now let's go up.
Very solid.
Right. 3,700 passing yards, 20 and 12, 87 passer rating. And if we want to go over to the rushing,
544 rushing yards. Yeah, damn, he had a season.
And now here I have the rushing yards right now for everybody watching.
Hell yeah.
In order of the games that he had most to least.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember
that game too. That's crazy. Yeah.
I remember this at home when he had the 67 piece on us. He was moving his feet, dude. Okay, so here's what I don't know. I just wanted to talk about Kyler Murray. I didn't really have a full game plan with it, but other than just he had a great rookie season, and then the addition of Nuke Hopkins. But his just before we talk about Nuke, I just wanted to talk. I mean, this was a great season. We don't really got to dive into it, but the homie threw the ball well.
Yeah, no, I mean he balled. I mean, yeah, how many games of that? It's 5 games worth 300 yards passing. So, I mean he had shaky times where you get sacked.
Hey, look at this too. 241, 2-0. I'll take that. 150, 2-0. I'll take it.
Yeah, no, he had some solid. He had so many games with touchdowns and no interceptions, which is exactly what you want to see out of a freaking rookie quarterback. The only thing that he really had trouble to is those sack numbers. A lot because of his offensive line, but sometimes he held the ball too long because it seemed like he thought he was more athletic than all the NFL guys, which he had been the entire way of his high school, college, everything. He could run around these defensive linemen. So I think really it's just the speed of the defensive linemen, these defensive guys, he's got to get used to. But he shows crazy potential.
I agree. And I think they need to draft an offensive lineman because that offensive line, if I'm not mistaken, was 28th out of 30.
Yeah, and that's what's so nice about the Hopkins. That's what's so nice about the Hopkins trade is everyone was saying that the Cardinals were going to have to pick a wide receiver 1 because Larry Fitzgerald's getting older. Christian Kirk he's a good young player, but he's not really a wide receiver 1 body. He's 5'11", 200. But now all of a sudden they bring in DeAndre Hopkins, and now they can draft a top tackle or a top lineman or wherever they want to go. All of a sudden they have so much more room there because their biggest position of need for Kyler Murray is now completely solidified with DeAndre Hopkins.
Right. No, I mean, you hit that nail completely on the head. And then the other thing that I wanted to just kind of address was, like you were saying, was their previous wide receiver depth, which was totally in question mark. And I have this is their roster, but I have highlighted in green the wide receivers just to make it a little easier to look at.
Yeah, imagine DeAndre Hopkins in there.
Larry Fitzgerald, old, 700 yards, 4 touchdowns. Now, obviously, that's no disrespect to a legend, but he's on the out. Andy Isabella, I think he's good, but I don't think he's the answer. Christian Kirk, same statement I just made about Andy Isabella. And Nuke Hopkins coming in. I mean, this is just – obviously when you bring in a number 1, you're a number 1. But let's just briefly look at the stats. I mean, we got multiple 1,000-yard seasons. Almost
3 straight All-Pros. 3 straight first-team All-Pros.
Right. And
2017, 18, and 19.
And I got a stat that if you're not familiar with my guy Nuke Hopkins here, this is why you throw Nuke Hopkins the ball, okay?
Yeah, let's see. What's your pulling up here?
Drops and drop percentage. 2019, 150 targets, 4 drops. 2018.
Drop percentage of 2.7%, and it was worse than the year before.
With 100 targets, this yellow bar that I have highlighted right now, this number is the best ever.
Yeah, that has to be the best I've ever seen.
No, it is.
153 targets and 1.2% drop. That doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, when the ball gets near his hands, it's
being caught.
It's being caught.
Caught.
So, I mean, we know Nuke is great, but I think that's going to, like you said, what people didn't realize, and they got him for so low. The David Johnson contract they traded was not only bad.
They got him for free, bro.
They got him for free. And like you just said, the biggest thing that this does is it provides so much more flexibility with the rest of their team and their money because now they can go address the offensive line. They could go address maybe getting some linebacker depth. They could address a potential third corner option, some stuff that Arizona might want to address on the defense. There's just opens it up into, we don't have to worry.
They no longer have to worry, exactly.
Because they would have because there's so many receivers. So they would have been able to address.
They would have had to.
And they would have been able to, but they did it for free.
They did it for free. And go back to the Arizona Cardinal depth chart real quick, if you would. The receivers. If they before DeAndre Hopkins, they had Larry Fitzgerald with 17 years of experience, and then the next closest was Christian Kirk with 3. They had young dudes and the oldest man that's ever lived in the NFL. Like, they needed something, and they were able to pick up DeAndre Hopkins, the best receiver in the league, maybe.
I Arguably, yeah. I mean, that's a
Arguably.
topic for another day, but he's got to be
Yeah,
top.
for another day. You can dive deep into that one. There's a lot of receivers that are pretty good.
Now, you may ask, we got the Mike Thomas.
Oh, yeah. Okay, here's one of them. Here's one of these receivers.
Yeah, now, before we get into the full discussion, we'll save that one for another day. One of the things that stood out to me, and you know how you start looking at stats and then other stats, you start in core, so one of the things I started getting was catch percentage. And I looked at the catch percentage for Nuke Hopkins, and I was like, is this a factor of quarterback play? Is this a factor of hands, in which the Nuke should be catching what's going on here? Is it your ability to separate and get yourself open? Is it your ability for your quarterback to throw you open? How much of a combination of all of these?
My goodness.
So I start looking at Nuke's catch percentage, and we can flip back to it right here.
My
And
goodness.
Homeboy's catch percentage is floating around high 50s, at his best 70.
Yeah. He's peaking now. Like the last 2 years, he's at 70%.
The last 2 years, we'll keep it the last 2 years for the
both. The best.
70. Let's go over to Mike Thomas, and this is a top 3 receiver in the league.
No
now, his
argument.
nickname is Can't Guard Mike. What do we see? I mean,
my God.
Bruh, like
he's averaging 78% for his career catch percentage. Go back to what did you say DeAndre Hopkins' best season was?
70.
So he's 8% on his average career than DeAndre Hopkins' number 1 season. I mean,
and he has 15 points. Best season to best season, it's 15 points.
15 points. He's on. I mean, crazy Michael Thomas is, but dude, Drew Brees could throw the ball.
No, that's exactly what I was about to just say. I was going to say, this is called being put in the right position. You get thrown open on great balls, and you have the ability to separate and run routes to open yourself up in such a unique way. Yeah. And I just wanted to quickly outline this just because it was such a crazy little stat that I wanted to tell everybody about, that when the ball's thrown at Mike Thomas, it gets caught.
This is just one of those miracle times where you have an all-worldly receiver, and you throw him on a team with an all-worldly, all-elite quarterback, and it just meshes perfectly. Because Mike Thomas plays football exactly the way that Drew Brees wants a receiver to play the football. He runs crisp routes, he gets open, he catches the ball. And Drew Brees will put it on him wherever he is on the field. Like,
1,700 yards?
85%! 1,700 yards in the next season.
All right, dude. And the last thing we're going to be talking about, again, we got Jay Quinn on Live at 5 with Dylan.
That's crazy, dude. Mike Thomas, a whole nother animal, bro.
You heard it here first. We've been
knowing. Yeah, a whole nother. Like,
oh, yeah. You were high on Mike Thomas coming out of the draft, though. I remember that.
Big time. I love my Ohio State receivers. Terry McLaurin last year, man. I don't really like KJ Hill too much this year,
though. The last thing we got on Live at 5 with Dylan Kattengell today, we again got on Jake Quinn, football analyst, here with us. So the last
look at that.
Is again, we're going to be moving over to the Zoom YouTube format. So if you guys want to subscribe to post notifications for
it's super clean. It's so much nicer. It's so clean, guys. It's so clean.
Yeah, this is and
it's so amazing. It looks amazing. The Live at 5 has been upgraded quick, DK. I love to see it.
Loving to see it. And you guys know what's going on, so stay subscribed on the YouTube. The last thing we're talking about, and I think this is also quick, but it is something to talk about, and maybe for fans that hadn't either read or been knowing about the CBA or known this part of the CBA, is the added NFL game. Now, I'm not going to read it. The people can read it, but here is a very quick summary of what is going on. But the major points that I wanted to touch on are, firstly, we'll touch on 2. The first one is 17-game regular season. Now, the reason this jumps out at you is not only – okay, well, this is going to be an extra game, just like obviously, at the end of the season, standings and whatnot. But the way it will affect the statistics and the history of the game, it's
going to be crazy. I mean, you would think that within the next 3-4 years, we're going to see most, if not every major seasonal statistic broken, just because it's an entire extra game. I mean, you take Mike Thomas, like we were just looking at, and you take his average throw on another game, and he's staring at like 1,900 yards and 10 touchdowns, which is all of a sudden like the best receiver like season of all time.
Right.
So it's going to be really interesting, like seeing how many of these records get broken and seeing if all of a sudden the media starts hyping up these players as, oh, they're some of the best of all time. When really it's like, they got this extra game. I don't know if these stats actually translate like that. You know, you're going to have to find some way to compare eras because we've never seen that, you know?
No, yeah, to that point, I agree completely. And that's what I was about to say is there's going to be, and I think not only just like, you know, it'll be interesting because there'll be statistical categories like just yards in a season that we might see Patrick Mahomes break with his ability to go for 400 in the 17th game or something.
Exactly.
Now, one of the things that I think will be harder even in stats to quantify is something like, oh, he hit this many receivers in a season, you know, like, oh, he hit all receivers for 40 targets.
Yeah, yep.
He did do that in the season, but in the last game, he targeted one of them 6 times. That wouldn't have happened in a 16.
Yeah, it's gonna be weird, man.
So I don't know. I have 2 kind of possible thoughts on a way to compare eras, and I want to see what you think about them. The first one is just a mathematical function that would take numbers and either scale them up to if you had played a 17-game season. So, you know, you multiply by 17 over 16 or something. You get the point where
you take your 16-game average, just add that on.
5,000 yards, just call it flat 5,000 in a 16-game season. They would augment that to 5,275 or something.
Yeah, you take whatever that average is, you throw it on to the last, throw it onto the stats at the end.
Right.
That's
so that's the first way. The second way, and I don't think this is as good of a way, but for the more complex stats, like I talk about, like team stats, season stats, would just be cutting the stat marker for not all, but some of those maybe team statistics after the game. But that can't be fair.
It can't be fair, but it's also completely like you're saying, is how you compare a team that's playing 16 games versus 17 games. You know, it's always interesting seeing how the NFL is finding more ways to get more money. The decided this year's 17th game was it.
Yeah, and here's the thing, just so people understand that I'm sure a lot of people do, but this 17th game was not for an added fan experience. This 17th game was not for the players. The
players did not. I mean, the players ended up voting on this to be passed somehow, but every player that I saw in media said, fuck the CBA, do not sign that shit. So I don't really know how it got through, honestly.
It got through because my opinion on it is that players that weren't in top-tier money brackets got a bigger benefit from the CBA.
Like the ones we're not seeing on social media.
If you're a top 25% player, your health care, your money, everything is already guaranteed. For the bottom 75% in the lifespan in the NFL is 3.5 years. So they wanted more guarantees for players that can be a scout team. And since there's so many of those guys that have a vote, once it got to a player vote, it ended up getting passed. That's what I've heard. Now, the other way, and to finish it, the 17th game is not for the players. It's for owners voted it. That was one of their major points in the CBA, and it is 100% for ticket sales and television revenue for another game.
Not even a question.
A unilateral move for more money.
That the NFL makes is just that as a business decision.
Right. And another business decision I really, really dislike, and let me give you a little backstory on why I dislike it. I'm a sports fan beyond the NFL, and I love baseball, and I love the MLB. Now, growing up, one of the most coveted things about the MLB was the postseason. Now, the MLB, even since in my lifetime, has expanded their postseason to 10 games, but it used to be 8. Now, when it was 8 out of 30 teams, you had the NL Central, West, and East, as well as the AL, and a wild card in each league. The National League and the American League, you had a wild card, 8 teams.
Yeah.
Getting one of those 8 spots meant something. I can't do the math in my head, but that's about 27% of teams make it, something like that.
Yeah, around there.
That was a coveted spot. So every regular season game mattered. Everything down the stretch called the last 40 games mattered. And getting in the postseason also was a huge incentive because for baseball, there's so many players out there. That's a great way to get national attention on yourself. That's a great way for teams to have a whole nother potential 7-game series for ticket sales and revenue, as well as television deals. This circles back. But that is a coveted position. Now, the MLB, for the same reasons as the NFL, has since opened it up to 10. Now, that's still only 33% of the teams. It's still very hard to get in. But I remember being a Giants fan and watching the Giants get a wild card spot and how much that meant, being the best team in the National League, wasn't a division leader, and it ended up going to a World Series. Now, with the NFL, they have now expanded their playoffs from 12 to 14 teams. I am upset.
14 out of 32.
I am upset because the playoffs don't mean shit anymore, for one. And then the second part of it is this was just such an obvious money grab that it doesn't – what do teams 13 and 14 need to be in the playoffs for?
They don't.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess that's the end of the show then. Fuck the NFL.
Yeah. All of the 4% of the teams make the playoffs, which is just stupid.
It's just stupid. Okay, well, I'm glad we agree it's stupid. If you don't think it's stupid, leave a comment. Tell us why. It might be because you're a Cowboys fan and you're perennially 8. But if you're not a Cowboys fan and go to 8 every year. Yeah, if you're not a Cowboys fan, then you leave a comment and tell us why you might like this. And if you don't like it, you're with us, dog. You're with us.
The Cowboys slander is okay, too, because we hyped them up at the beginning.
Yeah, we already shouted you out for like 20 minutes with Aldon Smith. I don't know if that was a good thing, though. All right. Well, this has been Live at 5 with Dylan Kattengell. We're going to get this up on YouTube. Check the YouTube. Check the Instagram. Jay Quinn, dude, thank you so much.
For sure. Thanks for having me, DK.
I'm sure I'll see you next week when we
I'm sure we'll see each other soon again.
All right, brother. I'm going to stop the share here, bring us back, and I'm going to stop the recording. We're signing off. Peace, guys.
Let's go. Thanks, man.